The next technique I'm going to show you is called the spider's web stitch. And I think when you look at this textile, it's pretty obvious what's happened, that a thread has been wrapped around and around, that the cloth itself was first gathered and then wrapped. And here you see circles, but it's not difficult to do things that are different shapes, as we see here. But what is very clear is whatever the shape, whether it's a circle or this trapezoid shape, you need to do an outline stitch. And you can see the holes in the cloth around that trapezoid shape first. So let's walk through the steps. Here I decided to do circles, and with my tailor's chalk, I drew circles on my cloth, and then I did the running stitch around each circle. I did that running stitch around every one first before I gathered the cloth. The reason I did that is that once you start gathering the cloth, it's very difficult to do any stitching afterwards, that the fabric, the surface is distorted. Once I was ready to start gathering, I actually used a shish kebab skewer because I found that it was easier to have something to pull against. So I pulled to gather the fabric with the skewer inside, then I did a granny knot, and then I pulled the skewer out. Now, I have tried doing the wrapping, as you can see on the circle behind, with the skewer in, but because I did it so tight, I found it really difficult to remove the skewer. So it could be a pen, a pencil, that's perhaps a little bit thick. Like I said, that shish kebab skewer worked really well, which, by the way, pointy side should be down because otherwise it will pierce your fabric. I found it to be useful to give me a little, what's the word I'm looking for, traction, if you will, to pull against to tie off the initial gather. Then I removed the stick. Next, I took some water. There's water in this bowl. It's not particularly obvious. And I wet the fabric, that kind of point that's now being created, with the water. I twisted the fabric. Now that it's damp, it holds the creases a bit better, and I started wrapping. And here you can see I'm using dental floss. So I wrapped it as tight as I could, and my wrapping was quite random. The closer they are together, the little bit more difficult it is to see, I suppose, where it is you made these circles, but you're just going to have to figure out a way to keep track. And when I did it, I didn't miss any. I didn't bother too much about cutting the dental floss. It's fine, and it's helpful for me to see where the ends are when I go to cut them out. So I just left it that way. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. This is part of the indigo process. What's really amazing about indigo, being a vat dye, you will submerge your fabric under the surface of the dye bath, and you can see that your fabric looks yellow. And when you pull it out, it turns from yellow to green to blue. And here you see that green color. What's super important, and I'll discuss this when I meet you in person, is that you really let your fabric oxidize, because if you don't, you're not going to build up that deep color. So if I just put this back in the indigo bath right now, I wouldn't be building up my color. And also, I didn't have any clothesline or a drying rack to put it on, so I just put it on a plastic bag. And so only part of this cloth was exposed to the air, so I had to remember to turn it over and let that other part expose and oxidize. This was what I ended up with. The one in the middle is my second attempt. On the left-hand side is my first effort, and I was generally pleased, but I certainly noticed that some of my ties, two in particular, seemed to come a little bit loose, and then my one lone circle up on the left-hand corner seemed to be wider than all the others. The image on the right-hand side is that same napkin, but I just turned it over so you could see what the back side looks like. So I decided that I wanted to show that I have a bit more control, and so the one in the middle is my second effort. So here is my my second effort at the spider's web stitch, and I'm getting pretty good at this. So why don't you give it a try now?